Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of The Everything Club. Today, we're thrilled to dive into the world of design and illustration with a very special guest. This week's guest has moved over 30 times throughout her life, but spent much of her time growing up in Durham, North Carolina. She attended the School of Art Institute in Chicago and graduated with a BFA in Design and Visual Communications. She has a deep love for sea creatures, scientific illustration, the colors blue and yellow, and pizza with garlic sauce. I will let her introduce herself, but first, let's introduce ourselves as the hosts. I'm George Mitroff, engineer, entrepreneur, and entertainment enthusiast, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts...
Keilan Morrissey. I am a writer, filmmaker, poet, photographer, lover of entertainment and arts, and I've been a friend of Miss Xia Isabel Rayburn for about 3+ years now. We met in Chicago 2021. Yeah, so I'm very excited to dive in today.
All right, and I am Noah, and I am just low-key upset that we're going back to this introduction format because I don't have nearly as many things to say, but I'm a lover of sports, movies, and all things pop culture. I'm taking that from you, George, and I'm very excited to... That was your intro for like the longest time.
No, bro, what was it last? You said I'm an overall enjoyer of fun.
I'm your average spook enthusiast and an overall enjoyer of fun.
I don't know why I keep that.
It's just accurate.
Perfect.
But I'm very excited to have Xia here as a special guest today.
Absolutely. And now we'd like to formally welcome our guest, Xia. We're excited to dive into your creative journey as a designer and illustrator. But first, would you like to introduce yourself to the listener and maybe provide a little bit of background on who you are?
Can I say no?
That'd be crazy, and I think we should do it.
No, just do that.
You're the guest. I mean,
this is your episode. You can do what you want.
Well, I feel like I was summarized pretty well. Yeah.
Sick. Yeah. Hell yeah.
I feel like I got nervous now.
Listen, I mean, we're some harsh interviewers. I mean, we're gonna grill you today,
I'm
so
ready.
you should be nervous.
Just know you're talking to tens of people right now.
Yeah.
Whoa, a full 10.
Tens.
And three of those are people in this room.
Yeah.
For movies, music, books, and more, join Keilan, Noah, and George, your ultimate entertainment hub. Welcome to the Everything Club.
I don't know if I can handle all that, you know?
I mean, this is going on the World Wide Web, Zia. Anyone
Permanent
can see
future
it.
right there.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I think, given our time constraints today, if you don't have anything to add to the intro, we can hop on into that light question round.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. If you could only draw one fish forever, what would it be?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. I feel like I would do, although it's not technically a fish, I would go with just general marine creature, which would just be crabs.
That makes sense.
Which crab, though?
The Japanese spider crab.
Oh.
Hell yeah.
They're very fun and articulated,
Indeed.
and they should look really wacky.
Yeah, absolutely. Listener Xia here is a major marine biology lover, and the Japanese spider crab, actually, that takes me back, because when I wrote my story, The Sunken Immortal, Xia helped me come up with like the coolest sea creatures that could appear in the story. Because I'm like, I don't know, crabs. She's like, no, do a Japanese spider crab. I'm like,
it
okay,
all
sick.
evolves to crab.
I had wanted to be a marine biologist for like 13-something years, and then I had a chance to go to a conservatory experience, but it was either like a science and math or an arts and creative one, and I applied to both, and I didn't pass the introductory math test.
Oh no!
To get into the science school, but I passed the art one with flying colors. So it was mentally kind of like my deciding point if I went into science or if I went into art, and here we are.
Well, that's unfortunate for the fish, but great for the art world.
I do have a question. Why crab?
I just feel that they, for two main reasons, Noah. One, I feel that they have just very interesting diversity, you know? Like, you can get the wackiest, spikiest guys.
That's
then
true.
very, like, cute and small and round. Like, I just feel like that the range of shape and color is just very fun. And second, I deeply enjoy the whole carcinization process which is like this whole evolutionary concept that just everything is evolving into crab.
It all evolves to crab.
And that's just too funny. That's just too good.
That is really funny.
They are the apex life form.
Absolutely. So that's why crab.
That is why I appreciate that for why crab.
When I die and meet God, she better look like a crab.
I thought you were gonna say God better be crab.
Or have crabs.
Oh.
Well,
No thanks.
that's always possible.
I don't want to know how that's possible.
If you could have any sea creature as a pet with no limitations, what would it be?
Ooh.
I've actually thought about this extensively. I would.
Crab.
Japanese spider crab.
I although no limitations are a factor, I just feel the general morality of owning certain sea creatures would emotionally hurt me. Because although my favorite creatures are like squids and octopuses, I just fear that would hurt me to keep them contained.
Yeah.
So I decided jellyfish.
Ooh.
Nice.
Because they're beautiful, easy to take care of, minimal. I could just do it pretty easily with with the tank, the circular tank. And they don't have a brain, and thus I will assume they don't have much of a conscience. Thus,
Yeah.
I will not feel morally bad
Yeah.
about that.
So yeah, you wouldn't pull a Vector from Despicable Me and just have like a great white shark. That's fair.
Or the
That's fair.
piranha gun, or whatever that
This
was.
is he has a squid gun too.
You did have a squid gun.
Jellyfish would be an awesome pet.
Oh yeah.
That's a great.
Would you
answer.
would you try to get one of those ones where it just like kind of regenerates indefinitely?
Honestly, yeah, it'd be pretty easy.
That'd be sick.
Yeah. Just have the a pet that you just keep your entire life.
Yeah.
Just the jellyfish is always there.
The jellyfish is always there.
It's always there. It's just like a family heirloom. It's passed on generationally.
All my
That'd be
grandkids.
sick.
Grandma's I had this jellyfish.
Great grandma's jellyfish.
I leave in my will the jellyfish.
So Zaya, you've always brought your A game with Halloween costumes, because you have always been a very fashionable person, worked in the fashion department at SAIC. So I want to ask, do you have a favorite Halloween costume you've ever made, and why is it Abraham Lincoln?
My favorite is probably Abraham Lincoln, because I feel like it's just a very wholesome and sweet story.
Yeah.
I was also the other top tier. I was a plastic flamingo. One year.
That sounds awesome. I need to see pictures of these, by the way.
Oh, I got you. That was a good one. I was also a giant squid at some point.
I believe that.
Sushi, and that's the list I
Shrimp.
can remember right now.
When you were-
Shrimp.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shrimp is pretty legendary.
Yeah. That was our first time seeing your costume work in IRL. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
But my most recent ones are on the not lamer end, but when I was younger, me and my mom would spend like a solid multi-week period crafting these costumes. So I feel like
that
if
sounds
anything,
about right.
yeah, mother-daughter bonding activities.
Yeah. Nice.
Say Noah. You got another
Yeah.
question?
What?
You got another question?
No.
Okay, George.
I only had a white crab.
I'm so
That
glad
was-
my
that was
work
that.
inspired you so much.
You want to throw one more out, George?
Yeah. Is there any like particular place that you love creating art? Is it more like a you can do it anywhere kind of thing, or is there like a specific location that gets like the juices flowing?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm a little bit in an artistic rut right now, so it's a bit difficult to answer that question. But I feel like in general, I'm a big walk and draw kind of person. I feel like I enjoy, especially anywhere there's got good architecture, at least for like creative warm-ups and things. I love like walking and drawing and sketching the architecture of things. So outside.
Follow-up
Nature.
question: how do you keep your like pencil and pad steady as you're walking? That seems laborious.
Great
Not
skill.
walk and do one more thing at the same time.
Yeah, what happened to your multitasking
I just
ability?
feel like you'd be stepping and it'd be all bumpy, you know?
No, I just mastered the skill.
Wow, that's impressive.
No, thank you.
But if they're both bumping at the same time, then they just follow each other. So
Sure.
I guess.
you know, like,
That
you
is a
bump
way.
the same, you're still drawing the same.
That's a way to look at that.
That's just physics.
Yeah.
That's just
George, I disagree with him, but I'm tempted to agree with him just to annoy you further.
That's great.
I think we should go back to that bit. I like that bit.
No, that's fine. I'm glad that we graduated from that. We should keep not doing that.
All right, fellas, unless we have any more, I think we move on to our open floor discussion of Xia Rayburn's work.
Whoa.
So Xia,
Yep.
you
I like how this is just only slightly different because we're just going to be asking you more questions as we go through the
yeah,
episode.
yeah. Well, okay. Well, I won't make this as pointed of a question. I just want to throw out the topic of architecture because you are an artist of many mediums and many talents, and so
Well,
architecture. Oh yeah, sure thing. Architecture is one that is cool because like obviously at this point in your career you have yet to design a fully realized building.
Nor would I ever be interested in that.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well tell me where you find your lane with architecture and your passion for it and how it has taken shape in projects you've done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Keilan.
Bring it on, Zach.
I'm just trying to copy all the podcasts I've ever heard. They always answer.
Well, thank you very much, Keilan.
They always follow up with a lot of enthusiasm. My mom was an architect, so I grew up learning a lot about just different influences of design and just noticing and appreciating how design is played in the day-to-day living environment and how like the psychology of being and connectedness with humans interact with design. But I have no interest whatsoever in architectural design. I exclusively love it as from the art history point of view. I think it's just very fascinating to see how much society is influenced, how much architecture is influenced by whatever movement society is going through.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it from just like a different kind of cultural aspects, like that as you travel, seeing how architecture is so fundamentally different based on what each cultural society wants. And it looks pretty.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is super interesting. I remember we were talking one time, I think on a road trip, you were telling me about sort of how the distribution of like creative people in the architectural field has changed over time and how you used to have these kind of individual people who had these bold visions and they would be able to execute a building, and now it's become more corporate because like there was like some logistical reason that could you speak to that like you can't like that can't happen anymore because like
yeah, well, part of it was that at least I can attest to like the within like Chicago architecture with the development between like Louis Sullivan and Frank Lloyd Wright to becoming more corporate was that it kind of became to a point where just like a licensing for architecture needed to happen. That like people kind of got a little too crazy and buildings started falling down. And things like just as architecture and construction became more scalable with like the Industrial Revolution and things like that, then they needed more rules and structure for these things.
Let's have fun with our buildings, man.
I know. And so it naturally kind of like became like once there was more of a certification process and like people needed to have more like structured learning with it, it became a more processed process, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I see why that would also be a field that's like less compelling to get into than other art forms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just it's also very math oriented. I just am not interested in that at all.
Who likes math?
Yeah, all of us hosts of the Everything Club hate math.
Exactly.
Well, I love math.
I might have to use it every day of my life, but I hate it.
It's amazing.
It's really not. We can delete it.
Oh, I disagree.
We can delete math?
We can't delete math.
We really could.
I read somewhere that
Is it a math textbook?
No, I was going to move on from that, but we can talk more about that. What's really interesting about math is...
I think we're good. This is Zaya's episode.
No, 100%. I read somewhere that like a architect's dream is a structural engineer's nightmare. Is there like a particular style of architecture that you find most compelling now?
I really love Art Deco. I know that is not much utilized anymore, but I just really enjoy. I think it's one of my favorite parallels between what is happening in the world at that period of time and how design was affected, because it was like such a direct, like before and after of Industrial Revolution architectural style, with like its streamlinedness, its geometry, its use of metal in its infrastructure. It's just, the parallels are just excellent. And then my favorite immediately after is it's like the arts and crafts movement, which is where people were like, this shit sucks. What happened to nature? and like not having metal everywhere and like cold, sterile environments, because that tends to be a critique of Art Deco, is that it is a bit like sterile, I guess. Or
bland.
like well,
Not. That's not what I meant. Wrong word.
Oh.
No, I get.
but I know,
Yes. Like, there's a word in my head.
like not very warm. It's not very homey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like meant to be very like, that's where kind of like a lot of people's like visuals of like the skyscraper and those kinds of things came through. But I also really like the one immediately after Arts and Crafts, because it's like a push in the other direction of like artisan and decorativeness, and having nature involved in every aspect of the decoration, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
I also just feel like I just wouldn't be very good at architectural design. I as much as I appreciate it from its aesthetic and from the history, I just don't think. I appreciate it as like a design person, but I am not interested in the actual designing of people interacting with buildings.
I got you. That makes sense. I have a follow-up question about architecture, and then we can move on to another one of your
I've talked about it so
many
much.
talents.
It's not even one of my things.
Like, I would never do that in my life.
I just like it.
We can course correct if you want.
Well, you do have some architectural work on your website, which such as the at least stuff that pertains to architecture, like your Museum on Exactitude in Science stained glass piece, which I thought was quite stellar.
Thank you.
But just the quick question I wanted to ask was, would you say that Krypton in Man of Steel, which is designed from a very naturalistic point of view, where there's no straight lines and everything is inspired by
Quick question.
bits
I
of
don't
nature?
know what that looks like.
I just wanted to ask, is that an arts and would you say that's part of the arts and crafts
Well,
movement?
I don't know what it looks like. I would have to see what it looks like.
Okay.
Wait, what is it from? I'm gonna pull it up.
No, it'd take too much time away from the interview. Anyways, it was just a side. It's not worth
No,
a deep
we're-
dive.
no, we're committed
discuss
to
it
this.
after the podcast when I can see what it looks like.
Speaking of,
All right.
speaking
I'm
of that,
gonna cut that.
No.
Not to
That's
be
staying
stubborn,
in. We're
but
talking
I
about
like
the Man
to-
of Steel Krypton right now.
speaking of your website, I was looking through your portfolio today.
Wow.
And I saw that you actually had 61 pieces of original work, which
You
I thought was really
counted?
cool. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, I'm really prolific. That's really cool.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. I'd say that
Talk about dedication.
it's a very strong portfolio, especially considering the amount of detail that goes into each one of these. So I wanted to ask, is there anything that you're like most proud of? If there's like a project that like stands out as something that you were like, dang, that was really awesome.
That's a really good question. I feel like everything from my scientific illustration class I'm very happy with, both because I had, at that period of time, I had been focusing on digital design so much that I had kind of lost touch with most of my traditional elements. And so taking this class, we're working at the Field Museum, which is one of my favorite places in general, and then getting to practice and get back into the groove and the technicality of traditional art. So I think that all of my scientific illustrations are very proud of, more from an emotional standpoint. From the design element, I think it is the stained glass piece.
The Museum on Exactitude in Science piece?
Indeed, because it was for it's called Image Studio, and I did not have any influence in the content. It was, everybody was given the exact same information, and you were supposed to make a poster that had a subject that had a rise and fall, and I picked the rise and fall of the detail within stained glass. And going through like the different like history elements of that. I'm very happy with this one because although it is not reflected within the picture, I had printed all the stained glass pieces on acetate so that it was see-through. And so when you put the whole poster up to the wall, the light shines through and it creates like your own little stained glass moment. I was really happy with that. and everything's done in Illustrator, and that was like my first year using it, so I was really happy with that. And I also really love infographics, and that was probably my most extensive architectural infographic I have done.
Nice. Yeah, I was lucky enough to see that piece in person, and it was very cool.
IRL.
I do still remember how cool the stained glass stuff looked. That was very cool.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. We kind of talked about this. Well, we definitely talked about this with Camille when we had her on, but like you've done both digital and more traditional like pencil on paper type art. Do you have a preference between the two?
I do. I'm much more prone to traditional. I do understand the argument, because I know Camille's is digital. That's her preference. I understand it's like you have more versatility with digital for sure, and a lot more. You don't have to have so much just more versatility. But I am very new to it. It's only something I've done with my degree, and I feel that there's just so much more like less. I feel like there's a lot more of me as an artist in my work if I'm doing it by hand traditionally than I do feel with digital. Like I feel like, and I guess it's also just like from how I went about it in my artistic career, but like for me, like traditional is my art, but digital is my design. Like it's like, that's a mental distinction that I think it's like hard for me to now separate.
That's fair.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about it.
I do have one more question. What exactly was the inspiration behind the Last Supper of Snails?
Oh, yes, please.
I saw that
the last
today,
snail
and
grill.
I need some background on it.
That was my first time ever using Photoshop.
I love that that's on the portfolio. It's so good.
My senior year of high school, when it was like the COVID year, I was like, fuck it, I'm on these stupid ass Zoom things. I might as well like
learn Photoshop.
Yeah, I like might as well learn Photoshop. So anytime I had a Zoom class, I would like try to edit things. And this one took like 6 hours because I didn't know how to use it. But I was so proud of that.
No, it looks fantastic. I think it's my favorite piece that you've done.
Thank you. Soon it will be available as a sticker.
Oh,
yes,
I am
please.
getting that sticker.
I think we might need you to do a hand-drawn, hyper-realistic rendering of that one.
I would love that.
Oh, I can do that for
like,
sure.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that needs to happen.
Yeah, it needs to be at least half as good as my confused snail breaking the fourth wall.
I don't know if I can get to that level, but I'll try my best.
You gotta try.
Listener, that's from a little game of Telestrations we played the other day. Yeah, well, so you touched on your time at the Field Museum, which was just this past semester, and I did want to ask you about that because that was just like such a cool era, I felt like, of you getting to be in that space of just a million different animals to draw and having the time and the means to get to know them and to do these really cool and colorful hand-drawn pieces. So like, yeah, like how did you find that time? Like what were some of your biggest takeaways from that semester of just being in that environment all the time?
Well, great question, Keilan.
Oh, thanks.
I guess one of my main, artistic viewpoints is wanting to visually make science information very beautiful. And I think that was the first time in a minute that I've been able to actually explore that as a sentiment.
Yeah.
Especially being in such a science institution, which is just very exciting to me. Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah, and the idea of making science information beautiful, I feel like that is definitely sort of this kind of lightning rod throughout your work because you've long talked about wanting to, I mean even today, about wanting to design the infographics at museums and stuff. And I'm like, that's such a cool niche to be interested in and to make science accessible and cool to look at. And I just feel like that's so cool, and we definitely do need more of that. And that's awesome.
It's very, very much one of my favorite things. Once I because it was once I discovered infographic design as a thing, it was oh my gosh, the world of science and art is not as separate as I thought it was. Because I kind of only thought, the way that at least it was presented to me was that I could either be one and do the other as a hobby. It was oh, you should be a scientist and just have art on the side. And I was just never really satisfied with that. Or it was oh, you can just be, you can do scientific illustration, which although I do really love, I did feel was a bit limiting in its creativity at some points. I was okay, but what about I feel like there's always something missing. So once I discovered that like communication design, I was like, oh my god, this is literally everything combined into one.
Yeah.
Incredible.
George, I love your segues.
I definitely saw that play out throughout the whole portfolio, and it was really interesting to see the balance between like purely creative things, like on the illustration side, which is really awesome, and then the design side, where it's like we're trying to communicate a point, and it is very interestingly communicated. And we definitely, we definitely need more of that, especially now when there's like an undertone of skepticism to a lot of the like recent scientific works, and oftentimes that leads to not the best kind of outcomes for I think all of us as a whole. So I think that that's definitely something that's very needed in the world today, which is very awesome to see such talented people interested in it. Hey Zai, do you have
really brought it home at the end of the day.
The passion just escalated.
Boom.
Hey Zai, do you have a dream art project?
Oh, do I ever?
Oh boy.
I would, okay. And I don't necessarily feel like I could do this now. I feel like I want a lot more experience in this before, but I would fucking love to design an exhibition for a science museum. All like every aspect of it I think is very fascinating. I would especially the infographic, like the posters that guide people throughout the exhibit would be very interesting, but also creating how people are interacting with the science itself. Like the different, I guess, like touching things. I'm sure there's better words for that, but
I think that's the best phrase you could have used.
Touching things.
like I just
Interactive, maybe.
That is the word.
I like touching things better, Noah.
I'm sure you do.
I would love to design all the different interactive elements and just like the general like flow throughout the information. Would be very cool.
Yeah, totally.
The
100%.
the Exploratorium in San Francisco is exactly that, and it is definitely one of the more engaging and interesting museums that I've been to.
It's cool. Separately, I would also love to do a bunch of like data visualizations, because that's something that I'm very, very interested in, but I have not had much opportunity to do any projects for. I feel like everything that I've done in that realm has been very crafty and more on the artsy side. I would love an opportunity to do like very thorough and in-depth large scale data visualizations. I think that would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
A lot of academic institutions have things like that. They're always looking for like data visualizers, like specifically at like WashU and other places nearby, just because that's what I'm familiar with. A lot of labs are looking to like contract people to just like make like graphs, figures, and like figure out how to adequately display all of the stuff that is apparent to the researchers but is absolutely not apparent to anyone else.
What realms of science and or statistics would you be interested in visualizing data for?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. I haven't thought about it too much. I am very interested in biology.
Yeah.
From what we have seen.
Marine biology?
I am a nerd, and so that would be very interesting. But I am also very interested in more like psychology and human studies, or like anthropology. I feel like there's a lot, especially modern, like current contemporary anthropology, I think would be very interesting.
Yeah.
And I feel like the data visualizations that I've seen that I'm most interested in have been either relating someone's personal experience to like a greater data set, or like connecting aspects of culture, society, or the world that are like connecting things that are maybe not as clear. My favorite data visualizer is Giorgia Lupi, who's an Italian designer, and she works at Pentagram, which is a very famous New York design agency.
Nice.
And she does a lot of how she relates her own, like connecting her own personal experiences in terms of like charts and graphs and lists. And so,
oh, that's cool.
yeah, she especially her. I wish I was her friend. Like, I want to be her friend so bad.
That was so genuine. The interviewee kind of turned off. And was like, I just wish I was her friend.
I just wish I was her friend. But she did this book series called Dear Data, where it was like her and her friend. I don't necessarily know if it was during COVID times, but I think it was a little bit before, where she would like each week, both of them would create a data visualization for something. Like, it was like how many times I ate spaghetti or something like that, or like the moon, I looked at the moon from this window this many times, and they would mail each other the list back and forth,
cool.
and they created this book like collecting all of it. And it's just, and then she made like a bunch of more graphs like from all the data she collected between her and her friend. And that shit slaps.
That is awesome. Zaya, we can email each other spaghetti graphs anytime. I just want
Let's
you to know. I'm so game. Mine might not look as good as hers, but
Incredible.
No, that's awesome. I've always loved, and I think we've somewhat bonded over our love of lists and that kind of thing. I mean, I'm a complete stranger to the world of data visualization. I once made a pie graph in Google Slides. That was pretty cool. But I do love a good list, and I think that's
Shout out Google Keep.
Yeah. Shout out Google Keep.
Shout out Google Keep.
I think George is having a little bit too good of a time over there.
George, don't you love Google Keep?
It's the best app for note taking and for list making, and the only true option.
Listener George is suppressing some primal rage right now.
Eons
That
of
really is the
hatred.
best way to describe it.
Listener, I would encourage everyone who's looking for a note-taking tool to browse all of the available options on the market. Specifically looking towards features, simplicity, and different
And Google Keep.
kinds of capability that are present in very many platforms, including Google Keep.
Wow, that was pretty
Sick.
non-biased advice. Nice. Zaya, I wanted to ask you about your hyper-realistic sketches that you've done, and there's a piece on there that is of yourself. And that is just like a self-portrait, black and white. That's really, really stunning. And it's so interesting to me that you've sort of acquired this style that is more, you have, well, I guess I suppose it's more of the division between your illustration and your design, whereas your design is more colorful and digital, and your illustration is more handmade. But just the ability to draw things as realistically as you do, and to employ it not in all your work, but just selectively, and I just think it's really cool. And like, how and when in your youth did you like acquire such precision with your physical drawing abilities? I don't even know how. I don't think all three of us combined could draw something on paper as good as that. So like,
Are you ready to be flex even more? I did that when I was 14.
God.
dang.
Why would you think that the three of us combined would do?
Yeah,
any
no,
better than
that
the
would
three
do
of us
way more
individually?
harm than good. Us all
think-
trying
Well,
to do
if all
it.
our talent merged into one person, I mean, like, I don't think we could do it.
Oh, okay.
I could probably draw these cherry tomatoes. Maybe.
Yeah, all three of us drawing at the same time on the same piece of paper.
No,
Layered.
We should do that.
Well, I was
love to
thinking
see
that would just be worse, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
100% that'd be.
What if something connects and you guys brain meld and it's like you guys are like Picasso combined?
You spend time with all three of us. What?
Do we get smarter when we're together? But no, could you speak to that? That's awesome.
I guess I've been very lucky to be in very creative environments since I was very little. I guess since my mom is very artistic and my dad is a writer, I feel like it was always really encouraged for me to pursue these different things. I was very lucky to go to a public art school from my middle and high school, and then I went to the University of North Carolina School, the Arts Conservatory program, which was also a public school but paid for the state. From the state.
Paid for the state.
Which was very cool. Well, all to say, I think I've just been very lucky to be very educated on technical practices from a very young age.
Yeah.
And so it's, if you have put, I feel like I've put in my 10,000 hours like 100 times in drawing. I really miss it though. That's part of why I really like that scientific illustration class, is because most of the art education environments I've been in since like middle school have all been about like conceptual art, which has been very helpful and I'm very appreciative. But I feel like it was a little bit like, okay, great, you know how to draw. We're not going to touch on this again ever again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it's a habit. I feel like it also just like the habit of consistency with sketching. I feel like really makes a difference.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And yeah, I hadn't like fully thought about how you had two artistic parents and just a series of these artistic institutions that kind of helped give you that platform. But I almost feel like having all of that artistic stimulation for your life, like was it ever overwhelming in like trying to decide what your voice was or what kind of art you really wanted to do when you had all these different inspirations? And how did you sort of find your niche and your style?
That's actually a very good question. I feel like, not that the other ones haven't been. But
well, that's actually a decent question, Keilan. And honestly, we can just make this part of our deep question round if you want, since we're nearing the end of time. So go on ahead, Zach.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I feel like that definitely, not necessarily was a struggle, but I feel like if you, I feel like I had always made an aspect of my personality being different. So when I was in surrounded by these like very artistic things, I was like, oh well, I'm very interested in science and marine biology and these types of things. So I feel like I had already paved my own path by being interested in the intersectionality. So I think it allowed me to kind of figure out things a little easier.
That makes sense. That's cool. That's awesome. Either of you boys have a deep question to throw out for Zach?
So you just recently finished school.
Yippee.
Yes. Given your experiences that you had, during school and now post school, what exactly do you plan for yourself to have, like, going forward? Or do you have a plan going forward?
I have no plan.
Do? Sick. Awesome.
It's a little upsetting. I feel like I've always been someone who's been very plan oriented. And I graduated early, which was part of the plan, but I think I just kind of
you just stopped there
a little bit.
Yeah.
I think like I am very interested in like different kind of in graphic design internships, because I feel like right now, not to flex, but I do feel like I might have like the technical abilities to be more professional, but I feel like I don't necessarily have like the industry aspect like skills yet. Like I feel like I don't quite know how to like interact within a team setting, or like how to do it with like a certain timeline, or like with a business format. So that's kind of what I'm looking for right now.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Are there do you know of any opportunities right now in like Chicago or where you're living at?
I'm applying to everything under the sun.
Nice. Well,
please hire me.
Well, yeah, so you mentioned that kind of like limbo state that you're in right now with your work and with different opportunities. So I wanted to ask you, if you could, let's say like, finances and career stuff and all of that was sort of, I don't know, off the table / taken care of, and you could really just do art for yourself or for whatever cause you feel compelled to do. Like if right now you just kind of had a blank slate, nothing else to do, where do you think your creativity would drift first?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
I'm still...
I do my best.
I feel like I still have like the scientific illustration itch right now, especially like after having that class and still being in Chicago and still being in contact with my professor, because we became buddies. It was very excellent. I feel like I would still be very interested in like doing any kind of like scientific illustration. I think not necessarily for myself, but I would love to do it for something of significance.
Yeah,
would be very cool. I've also I'm also like a bookmaker. I don't necessarily advertise that, but I do really, really love making books, and I feel like I haven't done that in a minute. So I think I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, That's awesome. Like you're and if we had more time, I would love to have done a deep dive into your love letters to yourself book. I've always thought that's one of my favorite projects you've done. It's really cool.
I just have a question to piggyback off of that with your book thing. I don't think I knew about
that book shit.
Your book bullshit.
Yeah.
Like Is it like the writing of it, or just like?
No, I actually really hate writing.
I see. So it's literally just putting the pages together and making a book.
Yeah, I'm very interested in like sequencing.
Okay.
And
George, let's get that mic
I had
pointed
to
away.
interject quick before we moved on.
No, I got you. George is losing it.
I'm very interested in sequencing, and I really enjoy like artist books or unconventional books, and I just enjoy like the tactility of different like papers and like I feel like people think of books in a very structured way, but there's so much creativity and like uniqueness with presenting things, and that is what I'm interested in.
Sick.
Totally. Yeah, you spent a little time in Chicago with the SCIC crowd, and you see there's a million ways to bind and format a book.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, which I feel like
Yeah.
in my mind, like books and lists are kind of the same thing.
Mm.
So I feel like it's just like a bigger volume of lists, is how I like to think of it.
Should make a book of lists.
I really should.
You should.
Oh,
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, the Love Letters to Myself project is something I'm very happy with, because the whole idea, I need to do mine for this year. The whole idea is that each year around my birthday time, I kind of like sit and like write a series of love letters to myself, of just kind of like things I'm kind of like mentally processing or going through at the time, paired with some kind of like photo series, that, yeah, I'm really happy with it.
I had forgotten that was an annual thing. That's cool. That's awesome.
My second one, volume 2, is very visually different. It's like bright pink and yellow, and is printed with Rizzo, which is like this like really tactile printing process where you're like involved in every single step of it.
Gotcha.
Well, you can be, I guess. But it was like this whack-ass printer from the 80s. It's one of my favorite. I have a lot of Rizzo stuff in my portfolio.
Yeah.
I think you should keep going back in time with it. Like you should eventually just do a printing press.
I really should. I have like some litho stuff in my portfolio.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's about time that I make my volume 3.
Oh yeah.
Incredible. And this
Every time.
You gotta mix up your adjective.
is
Spectacular.
Exquisite.
Marvelous.
Gourmet.
Gourmet. Yummy.
Delicious.
Soggy.
Oh, bruh.
You just went plain.
Sorry, listener, that's a callback to
That is a callback to,
well,
what,
2
two
episodes
episodes?
ago. Yeah, sorry. Go on, George.
absolutely. Is there? I remember like while I was going through school and while I was getting educated in like engineering and mathematics and like the stuff that I've studied, I can remember specific moments of like dramatic growth where like I finished a project or I finished like a period of time where I was working on something and I recognized that my capabilities had dramatically increased. Mm-hmm. Is there like a time that you had that like stands out similar to that or like anything similar to that?
That's a good question.
The greatest like learning moment?
I think 2. I think because the way that my school was structured was that for the graphic design program you had to take 5 intro classes and then be accepted into the program. And so I think I have 3. It was the very first year that I was like, it was my last year of the intro classes where I was making my portfolio for the application, and that was when I feel like I was like really understanding like the technical graphic design elements of things. Like I was really understanding typography and like getting with it on like what is good and what is bad. That was one. Then it was when I then became super oversaturated with graphic design and digital aspects, and I discovered kind of like printing or rediscovered printing, like print media, and I fucking fell in love with it. That's when I like did I had a whole bout of screen printing and Rizzo and litho, offset, and I feel like that has brought more color and vibrancy back into my work and into my life, because now that like the tactility of making design is something I had not really experimented with, but with print media I feel like it's like a really excellent combo. So that was excellent. And then third, I got to be in Italy for a semester, and that was just on so many different levels very formative experience.
Creatively nourishing, you might say.
Creatively nourishing.
Why did your voice do that?
Just
Creatively nourishing.
something about being in a different culture and different language in a place that is just saturated with hundreds and hundreds of years of art and creativity and beautiful architecture. It was something that was just really foundational.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's incredible. Something else I wanted to ask. You have often spoken about your love of stories, be it books or films, that explore sort of non-linearity in terms of how the stories are told in, jumping across time or multiple dimensions, that kind of thing, which I think is very interesting. And so when you think about that kind of non-traditional storytelling format, do you think that comes across, or that way of thinking about art is apparent in your art in any way, or in sort of the multitude of different things that you do? Or is that more so just a preference when it comes to like fiction and stuff?
I feel like it's probably less apparent in the individual pieces, but I feel like maybe like the vast amount of things that I'm really interested in are in like making the connections between different things.
Yeah.
The interconnectedness of everything. I feel like it was perhaps just like reflective of it, but I don't think it's like a one for one. I think it's more just how the part of why I really enjoy types of content like that is that I feel like I just think very in like in a nebulous, or I think in like a very like non-linear way. So I feel like it's less the work and more just how I think.
Yeah, that makes sense though, and I feel like I do see it kind of across your portfolio, because you have things from the stained glass architecture piece to the Last Supper with the slugs and like
the snails
my apologies. My apologies.
My God, man.
What a disgraceful thing to say.
I'm sorry, I've insulted your craft.
I think I need to leave.
Okay.
I think we need a new host.
Walking out of the interview.
This is on par.
We all turned on you so quick.
I don't even know where I was going.
Lots of different things.
Yeah, lots of different things, and I think that's cool because your pieces you have such a wide range of styles and of content, but there is sort of this cohesion that it is all your voice, and it is all interconnected in your interests and passion and the way you see the world, and I think that's very cool.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. You boys have anything else before we wrap up this episode? Any other questions you want to
Y'all got no more deep questions?
Yeah, we can ask one more deep question.
You get juicy with it.
Oh, all right. What's your favorite kind of juice?
I like passion fruit juice or mango.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Mango's solid. Passion fruit's crazy.
Not to be judgmental or anything.
I'm a tropical gal.
From Tennessee. Not Tennessee.
Where is she from, Noah?
South Carolina.
Nope.
That's incorrect.
No.
Is it not? Is it Tennessee?
No.
You were closer with South Carolina.
North Carolina?
Yeah.
Damn it! I knew it was one of the Carolinas.
We got Bull Durham. Bull Durham.
Okay.
The baseball.
The baseball?
Batter up.
What's happening?
Okay, go ahead.
One of my deepest questions that I wrote for the podcast was I was going to ask one of these gentlemen, but I will instead ask you. What is one question that you've been afraid to ask yourself?
God damn.
You leaned in to breathe into your mic.
Keep in mind, you do have 120 seconds to formulate a response.
I don't know. Maybe it's just like, as in my post-college kind of era depression, maybe it's just like, am I a failure? Is my art degree worthless? What fool was I to believe that I could make it in our world? There's so many.
Well, Zai, I honor your moment of pondering this, but I think all of us would be in unison in saying that by looking at your body of work and by just your life and where you've traveled and what you've done, that you are an incredibly well-learned and talented individual who is very accomplished already by the age of 22, which you just reached. Happy birthday of this month, by the way.
Thank you.
And I'm sure it's only up from here. And also, your self-worth is not tied to your productivity or what you contribute to the world. You are inherently worthy, regardless of your capabilities. And I just want you to know that. I think we're wrapping up now, folks.
I have written
You
an
went
outro.
through that
if you'd like.
so fast.
What's up, George?
I have written an outro if you'd like.
Oh yeah, bring
It is concise and to the point.
Let's do it.
To the point.
Zai, it's been absolutely incredible having you on the show. Thank you very much for sharing your story and insights with us. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us for another episode of The Everything Club. Don't forget to follow Zaya on Instagram to keep up with her latest work. Zaya, do you want to give yourself a shout out?
My shout out is at @Zipper_illusion.
Incredible. Be sure to subscribe to The Everything Club wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review if you've enjoyed today's conversation. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and we'll catch you in the next episode of The Everything Club.
I just want to make one clarifying point. When George says wherever you get your podcasts, he means Spotify.
And YouTube.
And YouTube. We'll expand it soon, I'm sure.
That is multiple things. Okay.
Well,
But that's not wherever you get your podcast.
it sounded good.
It's correct.
It sounded good. Yeah, Zaya, thank you for joining us. There's still so much of your work in your life that I wanted to cover that we didn't have time. So thank you for being in this debugging phase of the podcast with us.
Absolutely.
And we'd love to have you back.
It's been a delight.
I'm so glad. All right, gents.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Zaya. Thank you, listener. Peace out.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Was it? Yeah.
Zaya, say bye.
Goodbye.
Blah, 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 blah.